What if the loss you're grieving wasn't the end, but the clearing? What if God didn't remove something to punish you, but to replace it with something stronger, purer, and more aligned with your destiny? This message will change how you see loss forever. Loss is one of the most misunderstood experiences in life. When something leaves, whether it is a relationship, a job, financial stability, an opportunity, or even a dream, the natural response is to assume something has gone wrong. The heart interprets loss as failure, rejection, or punishment. The mind asks painful questions: why did this happen? What did I do wrong? Why would God allow this? Yet loss, in many cases, is not evidence of abandonment. It is evidence of preparation. There are seasons when what once sustained you becomes too small for where you are going. What once felt like provision becomes limitation. But because it was familiar, comfortable, and meaningful, letting it go feels unbearable. Still, divine wisdom understands something human emotion often cannot. New wine requires new space. If the space is already full, nothing new can be poured in without causing damage. Loss is not always about removal. It is often about making room. Many people pray for increase, but hold tightly to containers that cannot carry it. They ask for growth, but resist change. They want expansion, but fear emptiness. Yet emptiness is not the enemy, it is the doorway. When something exits your life, it creates a vacuum, and that vacuum is intentional. It is a signal that something else is meant to enter, something that requires room, freedom, and readiness. One of the greatest spiritual mistakes is assuming that what left was stolen, when in reality it was released. There is a difference. What is stolen leaves you depleted and broken. What is released leaves you open and prepared. Sometimes what you lost had already served its purpose. It gave you what you needed for a season, but it could not go any further with you. Keeping it would have delayed your growth or damaged your future. This is why loss often comes right before elevation. When higher levels are approaching, certain things cannot remain. Old structures collapse under new weight. Old mindsets cannot sustain new responsibility. Old relationships may not survive new clarity. Old financial patterns cannot support new provision. So what feels like destruction is often demolition, necessary work before rebuilding begins. Consider how nature operates. A farmer does not harvest because he hates the crop. He harvests because the crop has matured. The field looks empty afterward, but that emptiness is not abandonment, it is preparation for the next planting. In the same way, loss does not mean God has turned away. It often means something has reached its fullness and must be cleared to make way for what is next. However, this truth does not make loss painless. The pain is real because attachment was real. You invested time, energy, emotion, and hope. That investment matters. Grief is not weakness, it is evidence of value. But grief should not be confused with finality. Just because something ended does not mean it was wasted. Seasons can end successfully. Many people stay bound to expired seasons because they mistake familiarity for destiny. They would rather cling to what is known than trust what is coming. But holding on to what no longer fits will cost you more than letting it go. Loss, when resisted, becomes suffering. Loss, when understood, becomes freedom. There are moments when God removes something not because it is bad, but because it is in the way. It blocks your vision. It consumes space needed for something greater. It limits your dependence on God by giving you a false sense of security. In such cases, loss is not rejection, it is redirection. This is especially true in financial and purpose-driven journeys. Sometimes income streams dry up not to impoverish you, but to shift you. Comfort zones collapse so that creativity can awaken. Support systems fall apart so faith can strengthen. What once worked stops working, so you can move into alignment rather than survival. Loss exposes where your trust was placed. When something leaves, it reveals how much identity, security, or confidence was tied to it. This revelation is not meant to shame you, it is meant to heal you. God will often remove what you lean on so you can stand fully. Dependence on temporary things limits access to permanent provision. Making room is not just external, it is internal. Loss clears internal clutter, fear, pride, misplaced loyalty, false expectations, and outdated beliefs. It forces reflection. It pushes growth. It invites transformation. Without loss, many people would never change. They would stay comfortable but stagnant, busy but unfulfilled. The silence after loss can feel unbearable. The absence feels loud. But silence is where instruction is often given. Emptiness is where clarity is born. When distractions leave, direction can finally be heard. There is also a timing element to loss that many overlook. What leaves your life often does so before you see what is coming. This creates a gap, a season of waiting. That waiting is not punishment, it is preparation. It teaches patience, humility, and trust. It stretches faith muscles that comfort never develops. If replacement came immediately, you would never grow. If answers arrived instantly, you would never seek wisdom. The gap exists to mature you so you can handle what is next without losing it. Another reason loss is necessary is protection. Some things would break you if they stayed. Some people would limit you if they remained. Some opportunities would distract you from your true calling. God sees outcomes you cannot. Removal is sometimes the only way to prevent future damage. This is why loss should not always be prayed away. Sometimes it should be understood, instead of asking, "Why did this leave?" A more powerful question is, "What is this making room for?" That shift in perspective changes pain into expectation. It transforms mourning into readiness. It is important to understand that making room does not mean what comes next will be identical. God rarely replaces things in the same form. The replacement is often deeper, stronger, more stable, and more aligned. But if you are still clinging to the old form, you may miss the new one when it arrives. Letting go is an act of faith. It says, "I trust that what is coming is better than what is leaving." This trust is not blind optimism. It is grounded belief that God does not empty hands without intention to fill them again. Loss teaches you how to hold things loosely and trust God fully. If you are in a season where things are leaving, money, people, clarity, opportunities, do not assume you are being reduced. You may be being positioned. The space you feel is not absence, it is invitation. Something is being prepared, both in you and for you. Do not rush to refill the space with substitutes. Do not force replacements out of fear. Allow the room to remain open until the right thing arrives. Premature filling often leads to repeated loss. Remember this truth. God does not clear space without purpose. He does not remove without replacement. He does not empty without intention to refill, often in ways far exceeding what was lost. What left was not meant to define you. What is coming will. Not everything that leaves your life was harmful. This is one of the hardest truths to accept. Many losses are not the result of evil, failure, or wrongdoing. Some things were genuinely good. They helped you survive. They supported you in a difficult season. They brought joy, stability, or growth. Yet goodness does not always equal destiny. What is good for one season may quietly become a limitation in the next. There are levels in life where good becomes the enemy of best. Keynote 3 begins with this tension. When something good is removed, the pain feels confusing. You replay memories. You remember answered prayers connected to it. You recall moments when it was exactly what you needed. That history makes the loss feel unjust. But seasons change and purpose demands evolution. God does not only work with what is good, He works toward what is complete. Some things enter your life as provision, not as permanence. They are tools, not foundations. They help you grow muscles, gain experience, and develop wisdom. But they are not meant to stay forever. When you try to make a temporary provision permanent, frustration begins. What once felt like a blessing starts to feel heavy. Peace turns into pressure. Gratitude quietly turns into anxiety. Outgrowing something does not mean it failed you. It means it succeeded. Many people confuse longevity with value. They assume that if something was from God, it must remain unchanged. But growth itself demands change. A child outgrows clothes that once fit perfectly. The clothes were not wrong, the child grew. In the same way, you can outgrow relationships, systems, income sources, environments, and even dreams. What makes this loss painful is that growth often happens quietly. You do not realize you have outgrown something until it no longer fits. Then the discomfort begins. You feel restricted, unfulfilled, restless. You may even blame yourself for feeling dissatisfied with something that is objectively good. But dissatisfaction is often a signal of expansion. God sometimes removes good things because they are no longer aligned with who you are becoming. This removal protects you from settling. It prevents you from building your future on structures that cannot support your next level. If God allowed you to remain comfortable with what is merely good, you might never pursue what is best. You would stay safe but small, provided but unfulfilled. This is why loss does not always come through conflict. Sometimes things simply stop working. Opportunities dry up, connections fade, doors close quietly. There is no dramatic ending, only a growing sense that something has shifted. This subtlety can be more painful than sudden loss because it leaves room for doubt. You question your discernment. You wonder if you gave up too soon. But divine transitions are often gentle because force is not always required. When something is no longer aligned, it does not need to be destroyed. It simply needs to be released. Keynote 4 deepens this truth by addressing the emotional weight that follows such releases. Emotional pain often precedes divine exchange. This pain is not a sign that something went wrong, it is a sign that something is moving. Transition always produces tension. The heart lags behind the future. When loss occurs, emotions surge because attachment was strong. Pain is not weakness, it is evidence that what you lost mattered. Yet pain also serves a purpose. It loosens your grip. It breaks unhealthy dependency. It clears emotional space for something new to enter. There is a divine exchange process that rarely happens without discomfort. Before new vision comes, old vision must blur. Before new strength arrives, old supports must fall away. Before new joy is released, old sources of joy may fade. This emotional shaking prepares you to receive without idolizing. Pain humbles you. It brings clarity to what truly sustains you. It reveals where identity was misplaced and where security was conditional. Through pain, God recalibrates the heart so that when the replacement comes, it is held with wisdom rather than fear. Many people want the exchange without the emotion. They want replacement without grief. But bypassing pain would rob you of growth. Emotional processing is how the soul matures. If you did not feel the loss, you would not appreciate the upgrade. If you were not stretched, you would not be strengthened. Pain also slows you down, and that slowing is intentional. Rushing into replacements too quickly often leads to repeated loss. Emotional pain forces pause, reflection, and evaluation. It helps you ask better questions. Why did this matter so much? What did it represent? What am I truly seeking? In that space, clarity emerges. Another reason emotional pain precedes divine exchange is that the heart must be emptied before it can be filled correctly. Carrying unresolved grief into a new season contaminates it. God heals before he replaces. He restores internally before he rebuilds externally. This is why some people receive new opportunities but cannot enjoy them. They skipped healing. They brought old wounds into new spaces. Divine timing prioritizes wholeness over speed. Pain also realigns desire. Sometimes what you wanted was shaped by past limitations. Loss reshapes your appetite. It refines what you ask for. After pain, you no longer desire the same things in the same way. Your standards rise. Your discernment sharpens. You become less impressed by appearance and more sensitive to substance. This refinement is part of the exchange. What comes next will often look different from what left. It may not trigger the same emotional excitement initially. It may feel quieter, steadier, more grounded. But it will carry what you truly need, not just what you emotionally crave. If you are in emotional pain right now, it does not mean you are losing ground. It means you are in transition. Something is shifting beneath the surface. Pain is the sound of alignment taking place. Do not rush the process. Do not numb it. Do not shame yourself for feeling deeply. Allow the grief to do its work. It is clearing space for something better, something stronger, healthier, and more aligned with your future. Some things were good, but they were not the best. And the pain you feel now is not the end of the story. It is the bridge between what was sufficient and what will be significant. What feels like heartbreak today is often the preparation for a divine exchange tomorrow. There are moments in life when loss feels unnecessary, even cruel. You look at what left and think, why couldn't this come with me? Why did it have to end now? The pain intensifies when you believe that what was removed could have continued. But there is a deeper truth operating beneath the surface. Not everything can travel with you into your next season. Keynote 5 speaks to this reality. God removes what cannot follow you forward, not because it is bad, but because it is incompatible with where you are going. Advancement requires alignment. Growth demands refinement. Higher levels require lighter loads. Every new season has different requirements. What worked in survival seasons often fails in seasons of expansion. Old habits, relationships, mindsets, and systems may have carried you through difficult times, but they cannot sustain future responsibility. If they remained, they would eventually become burdens rather than blessings. This is why removal often happens right before elevation. When your capacity increases, your environment must change. Some people cannot handle the clarity you gain. Some structures cannot support the weight of new vision. Some sources of income cannot scale with integrity. Some emotional attachments cannot survive your healing. Keeping them would cost you more than losing them. Removal is often an act of protection. God sees what would break under pressure long before you do. He sees the collapse that would happen if certain things stayed too long. What feels like loss now is often prevention of greater pain later. You are being spared from future disappointment, compromise, or burnout. Many people ask for growth, but underestimate what growth requires. Growth is not only about addition, it is about subtraction. It involves pruning. Anything that drains, distracts, delays, or distorts must be addressed. If it cannot be transformed, it must be removed. This is especially difficult when the removal involves people. Relationships carry emotional weight. You shared memories, struggles, laughter, and dreams. Letting go feels like betrayal or abandonment. But not everyone who walks with you can run with you. Pace matters. Direction matters. Purpose matters. Some relationships are seasonal. They serve a function, not a lifetime. Trying to drag someone into a season they are not prepared for will either slow you down or break the relationship anyway. God removes what cannot follow, so you do not have to carry the guilt of choosing growth over comfort. There are also internal things that cannot follow you forward. Old fears, limiting beliefs, survival thinking, scarcity mindset, emotional wounds. These internal burdens are often harder to release than external ones. Yet if they remain, they will sabotage whatever comes next. This is why loss often triggers internal exposure. When something leaves, what was hidden comes to the surface. Insecurity shows up. Fear speaks louder. Doubt increases. This is not regression, it is revelation. God is showing you what cannot accompany you into your future. Now comes Keynote 6, which addresses the confusion many feel after removal. Replacement rarely looks the way you expect. Most people imagine replacement as restoration in the same form. You expect what left to return, just improved. But divine replacement often comes through unfamiliar doors, unexpected timing, and different packaging. If you are too focused on how it used to look, you may miss what it now looks like. Expectation can become the enemy of recognition. God's goal is not to satisfy nostalgia, it is to fulfill purpose. The replacement will carry what you need, not necessarily what you miss. It may feel quieter than what you lost. It may require more patience, but it may not impress others. But it will align with who you are becoming. Replacement often challenges your preferences. You may expect speed, but receive process. You may expect abundance immediately, but receive strategy first. You may expect emotional intensity, but receive stability. You may expect recognition, but receive refinement. At first, this can feel disappointing, but over time, you realize the new thing sustains you rather than excites you temporarily. This is why many people prematurely reject their replacement. They judge it based on past experience rather than future impact. They compare instead of discern. They measure with memory instead of wisdom. God does not replace to repeat, He replaces to elevate. Another reason replacement comes differently is to break dependency. If the replacement looked exactly like what you lost, you might attach to it in the same unhealthy way. Difference forces discernment. It teaches you to rely on God rather than the gift. There is also a maturity component. What you are ready for now is different from what you were ready for then. The form changes because you have changed. God meets you at your current level, not your former one. Replacement also comes in stages. Rarely does everything return at once. First comes clarity, then comes healing, then comes opportunity, then comes provision. This layered process protects you from overwhelm and pride. It builds sustainability rather than dependency. During this time, patience becomes crucial. The gap between removal and replacement is not emptiness. It is construction. Foundations are being laid that you cannot yet see. Walls are being reinforced. Weak points are being addressed. If you rush this phase, you risk receiving something you are not prepared to maintain. It is also important to understand that replacement does not always mean addition. Sometimes it means exchange. Something smaller but stronger replaces something larger but unstable. Something simpler replaces something complex. Something peaceful replaces something dramatic. You may look back one day and realize that what you lost was noisy, demanding, and draining, while what you gained is quiet, consistent, and life-giving. If you are waiting for replacement right now, guard your expectations. Stay open. Pay attention to alignment rather than appearance. Look for peace, not pressure. Look for growth, not urgency. Trust that what was removed could not follow you forward, and what is coming will meet you where you are headed, not where you were. Loss was not the end of your story. It was the adjustment required to carry what comes next without breaking. There is a space in every journey that feels unbearable, the space between what left and what has not yet arrived. This is the most misunderstood season of all. It is quiet, uncertain, and emotionally heavy. Nothing looks settled. Nothing feels secure. This is where many people assume they have been forgotten. But this space is not abandonment, it is assignment. Keynote 7 speaks directly to this gap. Faith is required between loss and replacement because this is the season where sight is limited but purpose is active. When what you relied on is gone and what you are believing for is unseen, faith becomes the only bridge forward. Faith is not denial of pain. It is trust in the midst of it. This season exposes what your confidence was truly anchored to. When support systems fall away, routines collapse, and familiar comforts disappear, you are forced to confront what sustains you. Faith grows when external evidence is removed. If everything made sense, faith would not be necessary. The gap between loss and replacement is where character is refined. This is where impatience tries to take control. You feel pressure to replace what you lost quickly just to escape discomfort. Many mistakes are made in this space, settling for substitutes, forcing connections, accepting opportunities that are misaligned. Faith restrains you from rushing. It teaches you to wait with intention rather than panic. Waiting is not inactivity. It is alignment. In this season, faith is often tested through silence. Prayers feel unanswered. Direction feels unclear. Progress feels slow. But silence does not mean nothing is happening. It means something is being built beneath the surface. Foundations are laid in quiet places, not in visible victories. Faith also requires obedience without clarity. You may be asked to keep moving without knowing the full plan, to give without seeing return, to prepare without assurance. This kind of faith matures you. It shifts your reliance from outcomes to obedience. Many people lose faith not because they lost something, but because they lost control. The gap exposes how much certainty you need to feel safe. Faith teaches you to trust beyond certainty. This season also strengthens discernment. When options appear, faith helps you choose alignment over urgency. Not every open door is your replacement. Not every opportunity is from God. Faith allows you to wait for what carries peace rather than pressure. The gap teaches you endurance. It builds resilience. It proves that you can survive uncertainty without losing hope. This strength is necessary for the next season, where responsibility increases. Keynote 8 brings perspective to the pain by revealing its purpose. Your testimony will come from what you thought destroyed you. The very loss that made you question everything will become the evidence of growth, strength, and faithfulness. Testimony is not born in comfort. It is formed in survival. What feels like breaking is often shaping. What feels like ending is often repositioning. Loss strips you of illusions and reveals what is real. When you emerge, you are not the same person. You are wiser, stronger, and more grounded. The pain you endure now becomes wisdom you carry later. One day, you will speak about this season without tears. You will look back and see how necessary it was. The loss that once defined your fear will define your freedom. The place you thought you would never recover from will become the place you draw strength from. Testimony is not about the loss itself. It is about what rose from it. People will see the outcome, but they will not see the nights you questioned everything. They will not see the moments you wanted to give up. Yet those moments are what shaped the outcome. Your endurance becomes proof that loss does not have the final word. What you survive becomes the source of your authority. There is also healing in knowing that your pain is not wasted. Nothing you went through was meaningless. Every tear carried instruction. Every delay carried refinement. Every disappointment carried redirection. Your story will help others walk through similar valleys. The understanding you gained through pain will become compassion. The strength you developed through loss will become leadership. The faith you exercised in silence will become inspiration. This is why giving up is not an option. Even when you cannot see the replacement yet, know that it is forming alongside you. Your growth and your breakthrough are happening simultaneously. When they meet, you will realize that timing was intentional. The testimony will not say, "I never lost anything." It will say, "I lost what I thought I needed and gained what I could not have imagined." If you are in the middle right now, between loss and fulfillment, do not lose heart. This season is shaping a story that will one day encourage others and remind you of how far you've come. What you thought was the end is becoming the beginning of a testimony stronger than the loss itself.